Okay, this is an online version of the Connect Downtown Plan presentation that was given at an open house earlier this month in June of 2017. The agenda for today, we are going to describe the project objectives. We'll share the results of open house and website feedback that was received back in November. We'll provide a description of the proposed downtown transportation network, and then share the results of traffic modeling that was undertaken on that proposed network. Finally, we'll share the benefits of the network and talk about next steps for the project. So let's begin with the purpose of the project. Things are happening in downtown Des Moines with a growing amount of construction, cranes dotting the skyline, bringing an increased amount of residential development, the emergence of successful retail districts in the East Village as well as west of the river, and yet is not yet the vibrant, walkable downtown that residents, employers, and businesses are increasingly saying they want. And there's a growing realization that the large and fast-moving streets throughout the area are not aligned with this new vision for downtown. Back in November of 2016, there was an open house which included a presentation of existing conditions as well as a mapping exercise which was available both at the open house and on an online format where people had the opportunity to share their thoughts on both issues and opportunities in the downtown area, and they could do it by mode, and whether they were talking about people walking, bicycling, taking transit, motor vehicle, parking suggestions. And so we got over 400 responses to this, both the in-person and online survey. Some of the key findings, the most common concern was kind of high speed, wide corridors through downtown and the need for pedestrian crossings. So these were there was a number of other comments, but these were by far the most common themes. So building on the objectives of the study and incorporating feedback from the public and stakeholders, we began to develop alternative configurations for downtown streets. When we talk about the opportunities for downtown streets, it's all about trade-offs, and we like to use the analogy of pouring a 10-gallon jug into a 5-gallon bucket. There's a lot of good things that could potentially be included on each street, including on-street parking that supports retail, on-street bicycle facilities, landscaping, and so we cannot fit everything that we want on every street, so it's a matter of trade-offs. This is a map of one-way streets in downtown. As you recall from the public feedback, the biggest concern was about wide, fast-moving streets, and many of these correspond to the streets on this map. And so what we tested was converting not all, but many of the one-way streets to two-way operations. We also looked at the number of travel lanes on a street as compared to the demand for travel. So there's a number of streets where there's opportunities to repurpose travel lanes for things like on-street parking or adding on-street bicycle facilities. So we tested a fairly extensive change to the number of travel lanes in downtown. With regards to on-street parking, the orange are streets where on-street parking was added, including by making peak hour restricted parking permanent on-street parking, and just a few areas where, in purple, where on-street parking was reduced. So overall, the proposed network increases the amount of available on-street parking downtown. Okay, so what are the results of the traffic modeling? This is a map of the intersection level of service for the proposed network in the PM peak period. So again, this would be the most congested 15-minute period. Intersection level of service is measured on an A through F scale, sort of like a report card. Something to keep in mind is that a level of service D would be approximately 8 car lengths between cars. So, the A through D's is really relatively free flow conditions. So you can see overall quite a lot of intersections operating in that A, B, and C, and even the D range. And the E and the F's are the intersections that we want to pay attention to. This is where a person driving would experience delay at an intersection. If we compare this to the do-nothing scenario, we see fewer E's and F's, but the overall changes in the network, considering the amount of changes, are not dramatic. This is another view of the modeling results, again in the PM peak period. So in the worst 15 minutes, we see the red indicates less than 10 mile an hour average travel speeds, yellow is 10 to 19 miles an hour, and green is 20 plus miles per hour. So if we compare this to the do nothing scenario, again, the changes are not dramatic, but we do see more slowing in the proposed network. To make the results more intuitive, we also measured the change in travel time between major origins and destinations downtown. So in this case, we're showing travel time from I-235 to 4 major employer parking garages, including Principal, Nationwide, EMC, and the Capitol Complex. And the change in travel time ranges from 18 seconds up to 3 minutes in the case of reaching the EMC parking garage. And so, you know, a 20-minute commute may become a 23-minute commute. So what do we get for all of these changes to the proposed downtown streets? One benefit, as we've seen, is you get slower speeds downtown. The relationship between speed and safety is well established. So a pedestrian being struck by a car going 40 miles an hour is nearly 4 times more likely to die than at speeds of 25 miles an hour. So creating streets that support slower speeds is a benefit to downtown. This is a photo simulation of Ingersoll. Ingersoll today is a 5-lane road. It was tested as basically a 3-lane road with on-street parking and a parking protected bike lane, supporting the types of development that is already starting to happen in this area. And you know, this is really where the market is going. A survey of 18 to 34-year-olds, 80% say they want to live in walkable neighborhoods. And for people over 50 years old, 60% want to live within 1 mile of daily goods and services. Several of the streets were designed to support retail success, building on the momentum in places like the East Village. While there are certainly exceptions, the majority of downtown main streets and successful commercial corridors are on 2-way streets where the traffic moves slower and the streets are more pedestrian friendly and easier to cross. Another objective of this study was to enhance access to downtown from surrounding neighborhoods. There are a number of wide, fast-moving streets that serve as barriers that isolate adjacent neighborhoods from the downtown area, streets like University, East 14th, and 15th, and so the proposed network would make these streets easier to cross. Allowing for transportation choices, so streets that provide not only the option to drive, but also to comfortably walk, bike, and take transit. Downtown Des Moines is served by an extensive network of regional trails, but the existing on-street bicycle network shown in blue has quite a number of gaps that prevent people from comfortably reaching their final destination downtown. The proposed network would include a complete bike network, including many buffered or protected bike lanes that provide for a low-stress bicycling environment, like the example shown on Ingersoll. And this is another image of a parking protected bike lane, which includes a buffer for the parked car door zone. The proposed network includes the East Graham pilot project, which is going to be implemented in the coming months. It includes a lane reconfiguration to include 2 travel lanes, on-street parking, and parking protected bike lanes. This is a project that was well supported by the retail community in the East Village. This is an image of West Grand today, where you have 3 driving lanes, parking, and a bike lane on one side. The street would go to 2 lanes with on-street parking and a parking protected bike lane. West 2nd currently has 3 travel lanes in one direction and on-street parking on both sides. This was tested as a 2-way street with 2 travel lanes and parking. Something to note is, you know, this plan is looking at opportunities to create changes within the existing curbs, which allows for relatively cost-effective projects. West Second, being this potential gateway to the river, this may be a street where a larger project to move the curbs may be of benefit to the community. East 14th is another street that is challenging to cross. Has 3 to 4 lanes traveling in one direction. Tested this as 3 lanes, two-way street with parking protected bike lanes in select sections. The final plan will also include a number of policy recommendations for anybody who has walked downtown recently. The tremendous amount of economic activity and construction often results in closed sidewalks, which can be very inconvenient for people walking. So the plan will include policy recommendations to maintain accommodation for people walking and bicycling during construction, parking policies such as pricing in the East Village to ensure that people are able to find a space close to their retail destination, policies to increase access to the Skywalk system, as well as establishing key streets for transit. So next steps for the project. We invite you to share feedback. Feedback was received during the open house, and you can share your support or suggestions or thoughts on this presentation via the website. As for the schedule moving forward, we'll consider feedback and make adjustments to the network accordingly, with the model being rerun in the July timeframe, and then we'll apply a prioritization framework that will inform implementation, and aiming for a draft plan in the August-September time period, with a presentation of the final recommendations in the September-October period. And with that, we thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation online, and we do welcome your feedback. Thanks again.